Hi, this is Lisa with John James Audubon State Park. Today's Wild Wednesday. I'm standing out here behind the Audubon Museum in our bird feeding area because I want to talk today about one of the most amazing little birds. Were you able to hear that? I'll play it again. That's a recording of this little bird. It'll put a hum in your day and some chatter too. We're talking about the Ruby-throated Hummingbird. They've made their way back to this area after a long migration over hundreds of miles. And just like a lot of you folks at home, we always try to put up a hummingbird feeder here at the museum. So today we're going to learn some interesting information about hummingbirds and how to take care of their feeders. As you can see from this migration map, the only breeding hummingbirds in the eastern half of the United States are the ruby-throated hummingbirds. They're very colorful little birds with green iridescent feathers on their backs and white bellies. The male has an additional throat coloration called a gorget. It's usually black, but if it catches the light just right, it shines that beautiful ruby red color. After a very dramatic aerial courtship display by the male, it will be time for nesting. There is actually a good use for dandelions. Hummingbirds collect the seed fluff to build their nests. The female hummingbird does all the work. So after she's gathered the dandelion fluff or thistle seed, she also collects spiderweb silk, and that's how she glues her nest together. Now the nest will be placed on top of a branch 10 to 40 feet up in the tree. And once she has formed the nest shape with her chest and has it all glued together with the spider web, on the outside of it, she'll place pieces of lichen or perhaps moss as a means of camouflaging it. Although it'd be pretty difficult to find anyway because a hummingbird nest is only slightly bigger than a ping pong ball. After her tiny little nest is constructed, the female will lay her eggs. And her eggs are small. They're tinier than a little bitty jelly bean. She'll usually lay 2 eggs in her small nest, and after about 2 weeks, she'll have hatchlings to take care of. Now let's learn some fun facts and compare ourselves to hummingbirds. Now you probably know how tall you are from the tip of your head down to your toes. In case you don't, you can have somebody measure you against a wall. Now if we measured a hummingbird from the tip of their beak to the end of their tail, we're talking about 3 inches. They're very tiny birds. Now, are you ready for a little exercise here? We're going to compare ourselves with that hummingbird's ability to fly very quickly. We're going to put our arms out like they're wings, and we're going to have to flap them as fast as we can and count how many times we flap our arms in 10 seconds. Now, you need somebody to time you or set a stopwatch so you know how long that is. Okay, are you ready? Okay, get those wings out, set, don't forget to count, flap them. Okay, whew, how many did you count? Well, I tell you what, hummingbirds can flap their wings 53 times in 1 second. So that's 530 times in the 10 seconds it took you to do how many flaps you were able to do. That's incredible. In fact, that's why they hum. Their wings go so fast that they make a humming sound, and they're just a blur to our eyes. Hummingbird flight is truly amazing. They can fly left, right, up, down, backwards, upside down, on their side, and can hover in one place. Now, if you're a trained athlete, maybe you can run a mile pretty quickly, a fast pace. Your average person, though, probably runs a mile in about 10 to 12 minutes. Remember how fast that hummingbird could flap? They can do 600 miles non-stop flight in about 18 to 20 hours. That's the same thing as if one of us would run from Washington, D.C. all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, except it would take us 4 days. One more fun fact for you. Do you know how much you weigh? I'm not going to get on a scale for you, but I can tell you that I weigh quite a bit more than a hummingbird, of course. Birds are lightweight, but hummingbirds, they weigh 3 grams. That's the same thing as 1 penny or 3 little paper clips. That's amazing. Because their metabolism is so high and they use so much energy, they have to eat 12 times their body weight every day just to survive. The hummingbird diet consists of 2 things, insects and nectar from flowers. It's actually pretty simple to provide hummingbird food in a feeder in your yard if that's something that you'd like to do. All you would need is regular table sugar and some water. Now, the usual recipe is 1 part sugar to 4 parts water. So that would be 1/4 cup of sugar to 1 cup of water. Just stir that in and pour it into your feeder. There's no need to boil the water unless you plan to make a really large batch of sugar water that you'll keep in the refrigerator to replenish your feeder. Small amounts are fine because you actually need to change out the sugar water in your feeder every couple days. You also do not need to add any kind of red food coloring. They are thinking now that it's possible that that red food coloring is actually harmful to the hummingbirds. And if you think about it, the nectar in a flower is clear anyway. It's the color of the flower itself that attracts the hummingbirds. They love red and orange colored flowers. So you might want to consider planting some native plants in your yard to attract them that are those colors, and also ones that have a long tubular shaped blossom to them, because that fits their beak perfectly. They can put their beak down inside that flower and then use their long tongue to slurp out the sap or the sugar water. There are actually a lot of different kinds of hummingbird feeders on the market, so it's sometimes hard to choose which one to purchase. Keep in mind that the smaller feeders are best because then your sugar water doesn't go to waste because you are changing it out every other day. If it's hot weather, you're changing it every day because bacteria and mold grow really quickly and that sugar ferments fast. The feeder ports should probably be red, not yellow. A lot of manufacturers put yellow flowers on there. They actually attract bees and wasps. So we want to keep the bees and wasps away from the feeder. Sometimes a saucer type one with the ports kind of on top also discourages the bees and wasps. And they sometimes come with a little well here that you can fill with water. That helps keep the ants out of your sugar water too. The other thing to consider is how easily are you going to be able to clean that feeder. You have to be able to empty it and fill it easily. You have to be able to scrub it. So pick one that is easy to access for cleaning purposes. And then make sure when you hang your feeder in the yard, don't put it in direct sun. You want to avoid the heat on that sugar water as best you can. Maybe you can place your feeder near a window. That'll give you a front row seat to watch the action as these hummingbirds zip in and zip out. It's quite a show. Join me again next week for another edition of Wild Wednesday.